Hey everybody, it's Bert from Season Gaming, and thanks for joining us today. I'm joined as usual by Ainsley Bowden, and we got a good podcast for you today. We're going to cover the podcast like we usually do in our same format, where we're going to give you some news, going to talk about a few of the rumors. Our main topic today is what we think are the best games from last generation, and we'll kind of talk about it, hopefully get your opinions on it in the comments a little bit later. But let's go ahead and start off with the news first. Ains, what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, so hello everyone. We're going to start with the hottest game in the world right now, and that is PUBG. So it continues to kind of defy expectations or even logic at this point. They announced last week or late last week that they've passed 16 million sold. I believe it was something like 2 or 3 days after they announced 14 million sold. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable the rate at which that game's selling. And on top of that, they've broken their own Steam record now, where they've passed 2 million concurrent players. And I believe since then, they've hit something like 2.3 million concurrent players on Steam. So that game is just, like I said, continuing to defy logic at this point. They also released a small press release talking about their road to version 1.0. So keep in mind that despite all of its success, it's still in what's technically called early access on Steam. So they're still working on that. The road to 1.0 includes what they're hoping to be a holiday release for 1.0, which will also include, of course, the Xbox release. So I think right now, as we've kind of talked about before, we're expecting that game in December, probably the last major game of the year to release. And we'll see what it brings. But, you know, I've said before, I'm really anticipating it on Xbox One. Haven't played it on PC, so I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Right, I don't even know what to think of the release of it coming out on Xbox One X and Xbox One because, I mean, it's got so much hype, everything kind of coming from the game. We've kind of had a hint of what the versions are. If you have not played on PC, we've got the game we're going to talk about next for Fortnite to kind of give us an idea of how the mode is played. So I'm kind of wanting to see more of it. I think there's so much hype coming to console that I hope it does well. But the whole idea of early access is so different to me now that it's like you can play like a full game, but it's still considered early access, but they're constantly adding features. So I'm excited. Well, we'll see what it's like when it comes out.
Yeah, I think it's kind of strange too, because they mentioned that they're working towards version 1.0 on Steam on the PC, but it's also going to launch in the Xbox Preview program, which is like early access on Xbox. So I don't know where the disparity is there between version 1.0 and what's going to release on Xbox, because they've said content-wise they should be the same version. So I don't know. We'll see. But either way, we shouldn't be a long ways off at this point.
Yeah, and still no firm release date, right? We're still looking at sometime in December. So.
Yeah, they're saying, excuse me, gosh, they keep saying end of the year, which means, you know, just tells me from experience that they are working overtime to try and get this thing out. Microsoft obviously knows this is a huge, huge exclusive for them on the console side, so they're trying to push it in 2017, obviously with the launch of the Xbox One X coming. So we'll see if they actually do it. Personally, of course, I'm excited for it, but if rushing it, you know, means we're going to get a subpar product, then, you know, I hope they just delay it to the first quarter or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to get delayed. I don't know. We'll see how the Xbox One X goes and how that release goes and games are going. I wonder if they're going to maybe have to push it for December, but who knows. All right, so let's segue over to, I guess, our next story. And as I mentioned a second ago, Fortnite, which was released, I guess, in early release / beta form back in July, has got one of their most recent modes, which is the Battle Royale mode. So to kind of differentiate the differences, Fortnite still has a normal mode, but this is entirely different and is completely free, and you can download it standalone to an extent, is dealing with some cheaters. So Ains, why don't you tell us a little bit about this lawsuit that's coming to a couple cheaters and how it affects gaming in general?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, really, because so they released Battle Royale. It's kind of the most famous PUBG competitor at this point. You know, 100 players, every man for themselves. They just added the ability to have 2- and 4-player squads. But they announced that they started banning cheaters at a greater rate, and more importantly is that they're actually suing. So this is Epic Games, the company who makes, you know, Fortnite and are famous for games like Gears. They're suing 2 of the cheaters for drastically impacting the game and negatively affecting the player base. So they announced this about a week ago. I don't know what it means, you know, for the industry going forward. Just going from memory, I can't remember anything like this where the larger companies actually suing, you know, the cheaters who were affecting a game. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here, because they could very easily, should they win, or, you know, should there be substantial consequences for these 2 cheaters, they could really set a precedent, which honestly, to me, I can't stand cheaters. I can't stand people who ruin other people's good times. So, good. I'm completely behind Epic on this one. And, kind of related to this as well with, the whole PUBG and Fortnite Battle Royale. Bluehole, developers of PUBG, announced just 2 days ago, actually, that they are at a rate now in PUBG of banning 6,000 cheaters per day. So it just goes to show you how many people are playing the game, but also how many people are, playing the game and trying to find loopholes to, just win, which seems bizarre to me because it's not like you're winning anything in reality, right? You're just winning a video game. So it's kind of crazy.
Right, and it's funny. I'm with you when it comes to cheaters. If it's one thing I can't stand is people that are, specifically manipulating code in a game to cheat, or they have one of those cheating controllers that you can get by to get the auto aim and stuff. I mean, there's other games that have been in the past, like your Call of Duties, even Battlefields, that there's been cheaters and they kind of ruin an entire series or game after the next game comes by making it impossible to win just by cheaters. So that drives me crazy, and I'm with them too. I'm kind of curious to see how successful they're going to be on the lawsuit. After reading more about it, it's funny that these two gamers, I guess you could call them, are plaintiffs at this point. They had constantly been banned, and I think what finally happened is Epic finally said, "Screw this, we're not banning you anymore. We're just going to sue you at this point." And I think I read a number of like 20 plus times one of the players was banned from Fortnite.
Wow.
And they were constantly finding this gamer, around. So I don't know how many times you have to get banned before you realize you probably stopped doing that. But yeah, good for Epic, I guess. If they win, we'll see how far they take it, or if they're just trying to scare the crap out of these players or not. On some positive news, if you are on the Xbox One, and I guess in the future Xbox One X, you do have a new UI that is available to everybody now. So this has been for the preview program players has been available for a while now, where we have the entire new UI. This isn't just a few new features that were available on the UI where you simply get a new menu here or a new feature. This is an entire refresh. They're calling it the fall actual update, and it is available for everyone. If you don't get it automatically, you can go to your settings and request the update. It is a bit different. As we've personally discussed, we were kind of in agreement that it does take some time to get used to. However, I do seem to like it a lot more. I'm very into the simplicity of any kind of UI or anything, even on my PCs. I keep everything super clean and very simple. This one does seem to have a cleaner look to it, and it's a lot more snappier as far as moving all over the place. And there is a lot of new features that you can kind of see that are intentionally for the Xbox One X to take control of the horsepower, even though you won't see a lot of those features until you get your Xbox One X. So yeah, I really like it. Baines, what are your thoughts on it? I know you had it a lot longer than me since you're part of the preview program, and I took myself out a while ago. What are you thinking so far?
Yeah, I've been toying with it for a few months now, and yeah, I like it. I think there's a couple basic things that require an extra click that annoy me. Something like the party, setting up a party or those other things with your friends. But other than that, I think it's a really good job. I like the home screen layout. I've actually put on a customized Cuphead background behind the home screen. And I like that, you can have a bunch more pins now for your favorite games and apps, and you can customize your home screen a little more. I like the community tab. You can see a lot more of what your friends and stuff are doing now, which is nice. And like you said, it's got some features for Xbox One X. Already now you can record in 1080p, which is great compared to 720p, which has been there since launch. And there is a pretty drastic difference. I actually did a sample of Path of Exile in 1080p versus 720p, and the difference is pretty sharp. And then you can also download, they're starting to sort games by the X1X and the whole 4K thing in HDR. So you can sort your games by, which games has these specific features. And you can actually download some of the Xbox One X enhancements already to your hard drive to kind of prepare for when the system launches. So you don't, launch pick up your system on November 7th and then have to download all these updates, which could take a while for some people. So I'm enjoying it. I think it's good. I think, I just think about it from a project management standpoint of, I can't imagine what it takes Microsoft to coordinate all these things, from a timeline perspective to make sure they get done before launch. And it's pretty impressive that they stick to these dates and get everything out when they do.
Yeah, another cool thing about the updates in general is they take a lot of fan feedback and user feedback pretty seriously. So in every update, there's always something specific that came from the community. So you can kind of see that with this one as well. If you're watching it visually, we are kind of scrolling through some of the updates right now that Major Nelson was kind of showing on the video. If you're listening just audio-wise, take a look at it. It's pretty cool. You'll find them easily on YouTube. They're pretty cool to see. So I really like that stuff too. And for someone that doesn't have the fastest bandwidth, I mean, I'd probably get 50 down on a good day. I'm really going to need it for the X1X enhancements when the launch day comes. So I'm kind of happy to get those ahead of time. So cannot complain. I'm not sure if you've ever watched any of our videos or anything before, but if you ever watch Porsche Power or Ains' background, might be a fan of Halo. I'm not too sure. But Ain, since this is pretty much your big thing, I love Halo too, but unfortunately I fall to a distant second. What's coming on the Xbox One X for Halo franchises?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't really follow Halo at all, to be honest. No, yeah, so my favorite news of the week, honestly, has been Halo related, which shouldn't surprise anyone. But there's actually been some really significant news. So we already knew that Halo 5 was getting a 4K update, native 4K 60, which is going to be absolutely incredible, especially in the multiplayer front for Halo 5. They also announced that this Halo 5 update that includes the 4K update for Xbox One X is going to include LAN support. So anyone who's been a long-term Halo fan knows what LAN support, means to Halo fans. It's how Halo CE became famous, and it's been supported ever since. There was, when Halo 5 launched, there was a little backlash because they didn't actually support LAN out of the gate. So local tournaments and things like that still had to run over an internet connection, which, as you can imagine, can change the game a little bit. So this was really impressive to see. No one really thought they were ever going to add LAN support to Halo 5, so that's really cool. But the bigger announcement, and the one that really nobody expected but everybody is happy about, is that Bonnie Ross, who is the head and founder of 343 Industries, came out this week and confirmed that they are fixing or working on fixes for Master Chief Collection. So we've talked at length in prior Bitcast about Master Chief Collection and how sad it was that it didn't really live up to what it should have been because of all the issues it had and the way it was developed and some of the complications. But she said formally that they're bringing an entirely new group who's going to be internal to 343 to work on fixing the game. Obviously, it's very complicated. That's why it's taken so long. One of the little tidbits to kind of show you or tell you how complicated it is that the game runs on 6 different engines, which, if you think about it from a modern coding perspective, is an absolute nightmare. I wouldn't want to deal with that. So it's going to be impressive. But long story short, they said the first of the updates will be coming in spring. It's going to include Xbox One X enhancements. And this has just kind of lit the Halo community ablaze, because if you can just imagine the promise of Halo Master Chief Collection, having Halo 1 through 4 and ODST available at any time in multiplayer, running at 4K, possibly 60, and with no bugs whatsoever, it's a Halo fan's dream, really. So yeah, this was my favorite news of the week.
Yeah, it's hard to forget the Master Chief Collection's launch. It was kind of a headache for a lot of people. I mean, single player, you could easily play with very few issues. There were still a few hiccups here and there, but the multiplayer, to say it was a mess is an understatement. So it's good to see that they're going to focus on it. They're going to take their time and release it when they can. We don't have any details as to exactly what those enhancements will be for the Xbox One X, but it's almost safe to assume they're probably going to be shooting for 4K 60 frames per second if we're lucky. So hopefully that's good. For some of the younger folks that are on the listening crowd, what is a LAN update party, or how does that work? Why don't you explain that for us, for some people that really don't know what the old days were, where you could take your Xbox to people's houses and stuff?
Yeah, the fact that I would even have to explain what that is kind of makes me sad. So essentially what they're saying is that with Halo 5, you'll actually be able to be local. So if you go over to a buddy's house or have a party, a local party, you can have multiple Xbox Ones or Xbox One X's connected via a LAN cable or Ethernet cable, what you run your internet through, and connect them together. And then you can run those on multiple TVs. So you each connect to a TV. You connect all the Xboxes together, and you can play local multiplayer on several screens, usually up to about 16 people. You can do it individual screens, or you can do up to 4 on a screen typically. I don't know what they're going to do for Halo 5. It may just be 2 a screen, but we'll see. But either way, it's pretty neat to think that, I'm sure just given the Halo community, we'll see some of those old LAN parties popping up for Halo 5, which will be really neat.
Yeah, the old days of multiplayer was pretty great. I remember people getting their whole computers to take it over to people's houses to play, Unreal or Counter-Strike or something. Those were so fun.
It's hard to imagine that, I think back to like college when GoldenEye was huge, and I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but it's hard to imagine that we used to play 4-player split screen on like 19-inch TVs, and we used to love it. You didn't even think anything of it. Nowadays, you try doing that and you don't even know what the hell's going on. So it's kind of funny.
Get the old cardboard screen cutter that we aren't jumping on other people's screens. Anyways, enough of some nostalgia. Okay, so we had some kind of negative news that a lot of people were hoping would probably never happen, but for everybody's favorite publisher, we've got Activision to briefly talk about, and there was some news uncovered via patent that came out. And I guess the negative news here is that loot found in some of their games was kind of being attacked by other people playing in the game too. So let me give you an example of how this was working. If you were to play a game multiplayer wise, you get killed by someone and it would kind of show you the gun that they had or whatever that may have been purchased via microtransaction. This would then affect the way you could buy that transaction via microtransaction, or you could get killed easier or harder from it. So it ended up being kind of a negative thing that came through it. Activision has somewhat responded to it by saying, hey, this was kind of something we did via market research. It currently doesn't run in any of our games. But one of the negative things about this entire thing is microtransactions in general have been seen very, very poorly in recent times, because we're kind of starting to see it in everything from racing games to shooting games to story games even. And this kind of just adds to the pile. And Activision is not everybody's favorite publisher in general. I think they're really close, and as far as a negative name goes, with EA, even though they're in very close relationship to a lot of games. But this is pretty sad and pretty upsetting. I mean, when I heard this, I was rolling my eyes most of the time. What about you, Ains?
Yeah, it's disgusting is one word I would use. I think it's ridiculous, and I'm glad that someone uncovered this patent, because the more we shine a light on this, and there's a lot of outrage over it, and people start voicing their opinions, the more we'll have a fight against it. But this is really bad. So one example I heard, which may be relevant, or I thought would be relevant and kind of demonstrate how this could work for the companies, is the fact that, think of in the EA sports games, you have Ultimate Team, right? And the plan, or how Ultimate Team works, is you buy packs, you open cards, you get players of that sport, you build your team, and then you go into matchmaking and you use your team against other players' teams. Well, imagine that you would be getting beat by these other teams, which then encourages you to say, shit, I need to make my team better, so I'm going to buy some packs and get better players. And then what they would do is, as you buy more packs, they would change or adjust matchmaking so that you would play teams who bought less packs. So now you're the stronger team, and you're beating up on these people who haven't bought packs, which just continues the cycle, right? It makes you feel good about buying the packs, and the other person you just beat on, it makes them feel like, well, crap, I need to buy some packs. And I think that's, predatory. I think that's, again, it's honing in on that gambling sense. And I think that there's going to be a much larger discussion that comes into this very, very soon. In fact, just this week, or earlier this week, I believe it was the UK, someone in England noted that they're going to start looking into loot boxes from a legal perspective. The government is actually going to look into loot boxes from a legal perspective in video games. So I think we're already getting to the point where this is going to be a much larger conversation.
Yeah, and we could almost have an entire main topic just on this, as we have kind of had a conversation on microtransactions already. But I mean, one of the biggest things I can tell to anybody listening is quit buying microtransactions. I mean, the industry is making billions off of microtransactions, but you're pretty much the reason why they're coming through if you're a big microtransaction purchaser. So, I mean, they're going to keep doing it if you keep buying. So try to stay away from it as much as you can. I mean, sometimes they're unavoidable, but there's other times where the microtransactions are just ridiculous and you don't need to get them. But, hopefully you get what you want out of them, but just be careful with them, because they're going to continue to get worse if we keep buying so many of them. But let's go ahead and move on to a couple other stories before we wrap up news. But if you're one of the 10 people still playing Lawbreakers, you deserve a round of applause, because it's It's pretty bad. So the big news here is Lawbreakers is now under 10 concurrent players. When this game first came out, literally the first days, there was a tiny bit of buzz about it. Obviously, it had Cliffy B, big name in the development world. But I think at the height was only a couple thousand. And after that, the numbers dramatically have fallen. One thing that's interesting about this news story is Limited Run Games did have a collector's edition that they did with this game. So I'm wondering if that's one of the 10 people that is still playing this game. Maybe it'll jump up to 12, but I don't know. This game is essentially dead as far as I'm concerned. And I've seen it. A lot of it looks cool, but I don't think I can jump over to that game. As I said, my biggest hiccup was the number of shooters out at this time that are very similar. So thoughts, Ains? Anything on that one for you?
Yeah, it's almost embarrassing, and it's kind of weird, right? Because Cliff is rather outspoken, and in later years or more recent years, he's been even more outspoken, and he's kind of been a little arrogant. You know, he has a reputation for being a little arrogant, and the quote that keeps getting thrown around is, you know, I want to create the next billion-dollar franchise, and that has come full circle all the way down to the bottom to quote a couple weeks ago of him saying, I have to keep this game alive. So we know the kind of fallout that happened with Battleborn. Battleborn was kind of the running joke for months after it launched, you know, due to Overwatch. And that game still pulls in several hundred to over 1,000 concurrent players on Steam. Whereas Lawbreakers, as you said, and we're talking about Steam here, you know, it is on PS4. We don't know what the PS4 player base is like. But in terms of Steam numbers, you know, as you said, it's dead. And it's become the running joke now. So who knows what the future is for this game, but it does not look very good.
Yeah, and it's funny because you see social media always kind of uses Microsoft as the punching bag as to how many players they have, but everyone's like, bring it over to Microsoft and you'll have 20 players or something. But I don't know. It's interesting to see. To your point, we don't know exactly what the numbers are on PS4, but I don't think I've seen any outlets, any social media saying, hey, come on over to PlayStation 4. That's where we're all at playing. But yeah, it's kind of funny to think of Battleborn because Battleborn was seen as a massive failure when Overwatch was out, and everybody was talking about how bad that game was. But in reality, it really wasn't that bad. It was just a different game. It's not a direct competitor in gameplay either to Overwatch, which is interesting. But everybody compared them. But I don't know. I think a lot of the negativity towards Lawbreakers is Cliffy B's fault. Some people love him. Some people despise him. So I think that kind of comes into effect. Are you going to play someone's game that you don't really even care for? I don't know. Maybe we'll play it down the road when it's beyond free and they're paying you to play it. You know, come play for free and we'll give you free microtransactions.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
There's more games to play that are all AAA quality. I'm not going to waste my time on it.
Right. Moving over to another studio that has been unfairly, criticized in different ways, I guess, is Respawn. So the big name for Respawn is going to be Titanfall 1, Titanfall 2. They are working on a new VR shooter. There's a lot of rumors that it was a Star Wars or maybe a VR Titanfall game, and it's actually not. So we don't know exactly what it is yet, but they are working with Oculus Studios on this one. No idea if it's going to be exclusive to PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4. We're still kind of learning more about it, but Oculus kind of works a lot more on the PC side and even Microsoft to a certain extent. So we're not really sure what that means, but some good news on Respawn. I'm actually a big fan of them. I love what they've done with the Titanfall series, despite other people finding things to criticize on it. So we'll see as more news comes out on that one.
Yeah, huge fan of Titanfall 1, as you can tell here. Titanfall 2's campaign was brilliant. I loved it. The multiplayer, you know, is great. We go back to the whole map design debacle, which I'm not going to get into. I wish they would have kept Titanfall 1 maps with Titanfall 2 progression, and you would have had a game I probably would have never stopped playing. But yeah, it's interesting. It's not Titanfall. It's not Star Wars, because they're supposedly also working on a Star Wars single player game, which who knows what the future of that is, given the other news we're going to talk about here. But this game is supposed to release in 2019 with Oculus Studios, as you said. So we don't know at this point. Obviously, Sony's in bed with their own PlayStation VR, right? They've got their own internal thing, whereas Microsoft is going more of a open approach with mixed reality, and they're launching some headsets with Windows 10 support later this year. Actually this month. But they've already said that Xbox One X is going to support virtual reality in the future. And now what that means in terms of headsets and studios, we don't know. So it'd be real interesting to see how that develops, because it would be pretty cool to see something like a Respawn VR title on Xbox One X in the future.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if PSVR really survives in the next 2 to 3 years anyways, just due to lack of power. I mean, even if you're running on PlayStation 4 Pro with the headset, you're already limited to a lot of software. So, I mean, obviously we don't know how well the VR would work on the Xbox One X, but with the extra power and with Oculus being a pretty good VR headset to begin with, it might be able to push things a little bit better than the competitor. So, who knows? All right, if you're a Nintendo fan, more good news for you, as if you don't have enough good news already, but the Switch has been the top-selling console for the past 3 months in a row, and those months are July, August, September. If you were kind of trying to get that Switch, it should be easier to find now, so it's good that supply is easier for people. The production of it coming out is a lot faster. I think everywhere I go, I can actually find a Switch in any color. Now you have some different types of Switch bundles coming. I think they were hoping to get as many Switches out as possible before Mario releases. There's a new Mario Switch bundle with the Mario Joy-Con colors. There was a Splatoon one a while ago, so they're all over the place. So good news from there. Also, along with Microsoft's new UI update, the Switch got a pretty cool update as well. They're finally, this is going to sound like a dig, but they're finally getting up to date with the current consoles and what they can do. Just some highlights at some high-level features that are now available. You can record up to 30 seconds of screen time. So if you've done something cool in your game, you can use the record function now. We do have the ability to do file transfer. So this was a huge concern when the Switch initially launched. If you started a game on the internal memory, you could not transfer that internal save to a SD card save, which is a massive issue, because what if your Switch broke and you needed to send it back, or what if maybe you just have two Switches and you want to transfer your save game from one to another? You couldn't do that in the past, so now you can do that. As we know, the Switch's internal memory is only 32 gigs. You only really get about 26 or 27 of it when you're playing, so this is big. And even more for some of the games coming out that have large install sizes, so big there. The other thing that is kind of a big deal is it now allows USB headsets. So if you were kind of stuck with that crazy Splatoon headset, you can now use different USB headsets. So definitely take a look. We'll be once again showing video of some of this and how it works. But if you need more information, definitely check out the sites and you can view more and get it. So this is, if your Switch does have the auto update on, it'll do it automatically, and it's really quick. If you need to manually do it, make sure to update your Switch. So pretty cool there.
Yeah, not much to add on this one. You know, good for Nintendo. I think that it's kind of funny that we're talking about these features, you know, in late 2017 as being new. But you know, better late than never, right? So I think it's good that Nintendo got these out. And as I think you mentioned, we have the actual press release from Nintendo of all the new features and how you use some of them on the site. So if you're looking for that, go ahead and check it out.
Right. So good stuff there. I've been looking for some new features and new things on the Switch in general. So it's cool you can do that. So Digital Foundry, we're big fans of the work that they do, and they have some new interesting footage. This isn't the first game that has kind of been reviewed and compared, but it's one of the bigger games because a lot of people have the Lord of the Rings Shadow of War game as one of their Game of the Year contenders. And as we know, currently PlayStation 4 does have enhancements there, but the big interesting news is they compared it to the Xbox One X enhancements, and they were pretty dramatically different as to the quality of game. Another game to kind of think about that has kind of seen some similar comparisons is the Assassin's Creed Origins game that was kind of showcased for the Xbox One X in general. But as I did mention, the PS4 Pro has been out for almost a year now altogether. And it's going to be kind of dated, being the difference in power. So with these games that are cross-platform, once again, cross-platform, not exclusives, if we're starting to see some of the differences in the launch titles that are coming out for the Xbox One X with the starting features that are coming out there, that's really going to kind of maybe do it. Definitely change people's idea for games, or at least make them aware that there's a dramatic difference if you have a nicer TV. So take a look at that video. We'll definitely link it in the description and maybe link it in the video so you can kind of see the differences, but they are pretty different. And hopefully, if you're having to choose between cross-platform, make sure you research it if you have both consoles. So big deal there. What are you going to do with this game, Ains? I know you're a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah, I probably won't be picking this up, maybe down the road. I'm hearing really good things about it despite all the controversy. But yeah, this was interesting. So this video just came out earlier today, and it was I think it kind of justified all the talk that Microsoft has had around the Xbox One X, right? And, you know, we've heard Phil Spencer and everyone from Microsoft saying this is going to be a demonstrable difference over any other console. And so far, we've definitely seen enhancements, but we haven't seen, I don't think anyway, something as clear as this one. They do side by sides with the Xbox One X and the Pro version, and I mean there's no comparison. The texture quality, everything they said about the article in terms of load times and other things as well, but in particular the 4K assets and the texture quality is just far above and beyond what the Pro can do. And the funny thing about it is that the build that they're using for the Xbox One X, because the system's not out yet, is from Gamescom. So the build is a few months old. So there's no telling if it'll be improved even further by the time launch rolls around next month for the Xbox One X. So one of the quotes that kind of stuck out, which really kind of demonstrates the difference. Remember, this is Digital Foundry speaking. Is that compared to the Xbox One X, the textures on the PS4 Pro look like soup. So that's definitely not what you want to hear when you're talking about texture quality in a Lord of the Rings type game. So I think if anything, it doesn't really put down the PS4 Pro as much, because we're both Pro owners. We both love it. But what it does is it kind of demonstrates that, hey, the X1 X is the real deal. Microsoft kept their word. This is a third-party title that's going to run in native 4K, just like they promised. And, the early tests of it look fantastic. So all it's done is, further enhance my excitement for November 7th, which was already through the roof. So.
Right, and it's interesting that when the Xbox One X kind of said what they were going to do, tons of naysayers saying, "Nah, it's not going to happen. It's gonna be crap. Don't even listen to them. Whatever." And as it's gotten closer to launch, there's a lot more excitement starting to kind of snowball, and a lot of people are getting more excited about it. So it's cool to see, to your point, that they have followed through with what they said they were going to do, and we're finally starting to see some things. I think maybe 2 months ago or so, we saw Rise of the Tomb Raider had their kind of screenshot differences that Digital Foundry did. They kind of followed it up with some more footage of kind of the differences that you'll see between PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. Obviously, if you're not a huge graphic person, or if you don't even have a 4K TV, you may not really care too much about that. But if you do have a nice TV, this will be a visual difference that you'll be able to see. So hopefully you enjoy it.
It's kind of funny to think back a year ago when they announced it, and mostly PC-only guys, right? And don't get me wrong, PC guys, slow down. Keep your hate to yourselves. But there were a lot of PC-only guys that were saying, Xbox One X will never do 4K. They're lying. Microsoft doesn't know what they're talking about, and all these things. And from what we're seeing more and more as we get closer to launch, is they weren't lying. Here's another third-party game that's going to run in native 4K, and just add it to the list. I think it's over like 130 titles now that are going to be enhanced, and a whole bunch of those are native 4K. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. Can't wait.
Good deal. I think we're both at the edge of our seats, literally. We'll probably be opening that up midnight and playing the whole day, maybe not even sleeping the night of.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so that wraps it up for just our standard news. We have a few kind of developer industry news stories to kind of cover with you guys. Ains, why don't you kick this one off? You kicked off our normal news, and let's do it here with this one too.
Yeah, we actually have more developer-related stuff than we normally do. So the first is just interesting, something to mention. So Mike Laidlaw, he's the creative director on Dragon Age. And we know that BioWare is working on the next Dragon Age game. But he's creative director, and he left. He's been with BioWare for 14 years, or was with BioWare for 14 years, and he has taken off. So we don't really know what's going on with BioWare. BioWare has a legendary reputation for a number of reasons. Just incredible games dating back many, many years. But lately, who knows? Andromeda came out. We're not even going to talk about it more than mentioning the name. You keep to yourself. I'm watching you down there. But we know what happened with that. And between Casey Hudson kind of leaving, now coming back, and Mike Laidlaw now leaving, and them working on Anthem, which is supposed to be their next big game, who knows? I don't know what this means for Dragon Age, what this means for BioWare, but, I'm a huge Dragon Age fan. I'm really, really pumped for Anthem. So I hope that studio is not kind of falling apart. I hope they're keeping it together, because they make some of my favorite games, and have made some of my favorite games in the past.
Yeah, Well, as my face said a second ago, I'm not going to comment on one of those, but I will say BioWare is one of my favorite studios of all time. Even if we look back to the old Star Wars games that kind of changed gaming to a certain extent, but it's really crazy what's kind of been happening. And then Dragon Age, I thought there was rumors of that might be a game that has been in development for their next follow-up to Inquisition, and I'm not sure if that's going to change that as well. So kind of sad, but hopefully they can kind of finish off what they have maybe started already. But we'll see. So many changes going on in the industry these days that you don't even know what to say to it anymore.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, really is another thing came out from a developer standpoint. And that is CD Projekt Red, who made what is probably my favorite game of all time now in The Witcher 3. Again, you can see above me, I'm a big fan.
Couldn't tell. Couldn't tell.
And there's a lot more of that around the room here. But they saw some ex-employees posting on Glassdoor. So Glassdoor is a website, if you weren't familiar with it, that allows employees of companies to kind of post their thoughts and opinions on companies. So you can imagine how well that goes over. But some people were saying that CD Projekt Red, their employees are miserable, that morale is low, and that, all these kind of accusations. And CD Projekt Red responded and said, they do work really hard, and that's what it takes to kind of push the boundaries of what we know as video games. And they're working on Cyberpunk real heavily right now, and that is what it is. So it was, who knows? We don't really know what goes on inside these companies. If we do, it comes out very late. So who knows if these people are just disgruntled employees or if they're actually, speaking the truth. Nobody knows. But it was rather interesting, especially for a company like CD Projekt Red that has, has kind of earned the highest reputation among fans.
Yeah, and I think game development in general is a very tough industry to work in. Whether you're a developer, project manager, if you're the CEO, whatever it is, you have long, hard hours that you're usually working. And I've had friends that worked in there that have been testers and stuff, and it's tough in general. I'm not really sure what this really means for them, but being that they are not state-based here in the United States, it might be a completely different mentality in other countries and stuff. So who knows? We'll see what happens and what comes from it. The letter I thought that they responded to was kind of weird because it was very vague.
It was.
They didn't quite address the issue. They kind of mentioned what has been talked about in the press, and then they kind of circled around a few things. But it is also kind of, I guess, good and interesting to me more than anything that they actually responded to, I guess, negative press that has been coming out regarding them. So I don't know. And I think one of the big things that this kind of kicked it off from is their next game, Cyberpunk. We haven't really heard anything about it whatsoever after, I guess, a teaser. Was it 2 years ago that the teaser came out? Maybe 3 years ago even. So I don't know. We'll see what it really means and if there's any truth to it or not. Glassdoor is an interesting place. You always hear, with me being in a certain role in my professional career, and Glassdoor kind of enters my realm very often. You only hear the negative side from companies. You never hear the good things about companies. So when someone leaves this realm, the first thing they're going to do is talk trash about it, but you never hear someone that loves their job somewhere. So anyways, moving on.
Yeah, so again, kind of continuing down that same path, one of the saddest pieces of news this week was Electronic Arts announced that they're shutting down Visceral Games. So Visceral Games, best known for the Dead Space series, which you and I are both huge fans of, especially Dead Space 1 and 2. This was very sad to hear. They did announce that, Patrick Sutherland, who's the executive VP of Electronic Arts, came out and said that they are trying to kind of relocate those employees to other positions within EA, which is good. I hope they'll, all those guys and gals land on their feet or, get jobs with some other major company. I did see a couple developers actually posting, hey, we've got positions open, come on over. So
yeah, that was Ed Boon, right?
Yeah, NetherRealm and then some other places too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's good to see. I know there's kind of that tight-knit mentality among a lot of the better developers, so that was nice to see. But this is sad news. I mean, what is especially frustrating about it, I think, to gamers is they were working on the Star Wars license and they were developing what was supposed to be a single-player, narrative-driven Star Wars game, and it was supposed to be what Star Wars 1313 got canceled years ago to the chagrin of many fans, and so they were hoping this would be the replacement for that. You know, a tight single player campaign in the Star Wars universe that would really tell a good story. And EA essentially didn't say it out loud or didn't say the words, but if you read, you know, through the lines, they essentially said that, hey, we don't want the future of this game to be a single player 10-20 hour experience. We want it to be something that people play for years. And so it sounds like they want to develop a games as a service or a game as a service rather than a single player narrative game, which, you know, we talked about on our last Bitcast. So we have our own thoughts and opinions on that whole model. But, you know, it is disappointing, and it's, sorry to ramble on here, but it's also bizarre, right? Because they've been working on this for years now. It's been at least 2 years, I think 3, which means they had to be far along in development. So I don't know how they pivot or turn on this and change the game into something that can be a game as a service, because those are 2 completely different development types, you know, two completely different worlds. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think about it either, in the sense to where EA has just been killing studios lately, all left and right. I mean, the other game we're not going to talk about, and then obviously Dead Space, which is literally one of my favorite series ever. And we'll talk about it when we talk about Last Generation in a second, but I don't even know what to think about that. But to your point about it, it's been in development for a while. I mean, we kind of saw things happen with recent exclusives from Xbox One that were in development for a while, and maybe another studio is going to come in and buy code, that game code from them. I mean, who knows? It seems like those Star Wars games, I mean, how many Star Wars games are currently in development that we never know about, or that were big or are still being worked on? I mean, there's just so many Star Wars things right now that, you know, I don't know. But it is a big deal. A lot of people love Visceral, and it's kind of sad to see EA shut another one down.
Yeah, you know, even more bizarre, right, is Amy Hennig, who, you know, got famous for many games, but most importantly, the Uncharted series, right, and her storytelling techniques. Left Naughty Dog, famously, lawsuit and all, went to Visceral to work on creating this Star Wars narrative game. And the only comment they had is, you know, we're speaking with Amy now about her future. And it's like, well, what does that even mean? Because if they're developing a game as a service, that's really not what she does. You know, she's famous for narrative-driven games, and she's one of the best in the industry at it. So it's just bizarre. I don't understand it.
Right. Well, sad news for all of us there, guys. That's kind of our developer industry news for this week. We did have one somewhat rumor. It's not really a rumor anymore. We kind of have the full thing, but that came out here in the last couple days. And Ni no Kuni 2. So if you played Ni no Kuni 1, it was a PlayStation 3 exclusive. And it was one of the best RPGs of last generation, probably ever, especially if you like the art style from the Dragon Ball Z series and kind of Dragon Quest. They kind of brought the same art director to come do the art for that game. Very unique game, very cool. But Ni no Kuni 2 is coming out, and a lot of people have thought it's going to be specifically a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and the rumor, and also PC, sorry. But the rumor was that this is going to be coming to Xbox One as a digital-only copy for now. That has been squashed as a falsehood. So that is not really going to be something that's coming to Xbox One currently at the time. This is a very big kind of Japanese title, JRPG, and it seems like that will be sticking with the PlayStation 4/PC for now. So maybe in the future, maybe it'll be a timed exclusive for now, but in the future it'll come out to Xbox One. But kind of unfortunate there, Haynes. I know your pre-order copy is still coming for PlayStation 4 like mine, so we'll be able to share ideas and thoughts about it when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm not even a huge fan of the franchise. I am looking forward to it. I've heard good things. I do have a collector's edition on pre-order just because they were really limited, and that's how I do. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of sad, right? Because I know Phil Spencer has spoken about wanting to deepen those relationships with some of the Japanese publishers, and people thought that this may be finally a sign of that, but according to Bandai Namco, this is not true. So we obviously don't know for sure either way right now. We don't know if this is something that leaked and is coming later down the line, and they just don't want to announce it yet due to some kind of limited exclusive, like you said, or if it's really not coming and someone just made it up. So who knows? We'll see. We'll see early next year.
Yeah, can never tell those things. And by the way, Ni no Kuni has a massive following, so that would have been pretty good for Xbox if they did get that. So too bad. But we'll see what happens in the future. But that's our rumors for this week, guys. We have been gladly missing out on a lot of rumors that are not coming out in the gaming industry. So Glad that they're not really popping up as much as they have in the past. So let's move over to our new releases, and we do like to keep these shorter now, just kind of telling you about the new releases, how they're doing with their scores, and then we'll kind of talk about what we're currently playing and jump to our main topic that we're looking forward to share with you. So the big release for this past week, this specific past week, is The Shadow of Mordor, getting reviewed really well. As I did mention earlier in our discussion, that a lot of people have it at their Game of the Year contender. It scored really well with an 84 strong on OpenCritic, so hopefully you are definitely enjoying that. And moving on to our next one that actually released last week on Friday the 13th, it's Evil Within 2. We're huge fans of the first one, but this one's scoring a 78 strong. A lot of people are liking it. I'm not sure it'll really be in Game of the Year contention, but it's definitely something you should get into if you're into that kind of genre of horror. So looking really good. Kind of a disappointing score for Gran Turismo Sport on OpenCritic. It's only scoring a 76 strong. A lot of people didn't like a lot of the changes that have come through and the lack of overall content. So if you're a huge Gran Turismo fan, you're probably going to like the overall racing of it. But when it comes to the features, that's been the biggest critique and content as far as tracks and cars go. So kind of unfortunate to see this one kind of fall from what a lot of people thought was the top. But a lot of things have happened since then as far as games go. Let's see what else we got on here. So some things that are coming out in the near future, and this is as quick as next Friday. So we don't have a Bitcast for you next week, but the week after, we may do a little special to kind of talk about the crazy end of October of games coming out. So next Friday, once again, mark your calendars, we've got 3 massive games that are going to be probably some of the biggest games of the fall. So Mario Odyssey. If you have a Switch, you've been probably waiting for this game for a while. Assassin's Creed Origins, and also Wolfenstein 2. So I have a feeling Assassin's Creed Origins and Wolfenstein 2 will be affected by Mario Odyssey there, and some of these may even be purchased towards the November and December months due to the holidays coming up. But busy day coming up next week. And if not to leave off, one of my favorite games that was released is South Park: The Fractured But Whole, which, funny enough, was my biggest anticipation for this week / last week. Scored really well with an 83 strong. I am playing this game right now, and the biggest thing I can say about it is if you're a South Park fan, you're going to love this game. If you're not a fan of South Park, it's more South Park. So I really wouldn't suggest it, because even when you're not doing the fun role-playing stuff, that's the role-playing fighting engine and stuff that's happening in the game, you may not get it as far as the humor in it. So if you don't like South Park humor, you might want to pass on this. But other than that, it's fantastic. So we usually talk about what we're playing currently, and our lists are usually pretty crazy. But Ains, what are you currently playing right now? I can only imagine every console, probably a couple handheld games. You know, you probably got things going on everywhere. What's going on with your currently?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this quick. I'll try. So I started, I don't know why I started, but I started Divinity Original Sin, the first one on the Xbox One. I've been meaning to pick it up, you know, for a year and a half plus now. I just happened to get a copy really cheap. So started that. I really like it. Very old school role-playing game. Don't really need to talk about that much. Cuphead, took a little break on with some of the new games. I'm gone back to it, and now I'm determined to 100% it. So I'm at the point now where I've gotten... I've already beaten the game. I've beaten all the run and gun levels. I'm pacifist. I've beaten now every single boss with an A. And I've got most of the secret achievements as well. So really the only main thing I have left to do is to finish beating all the bosses on Expert. I have beat several of them already. So I'm not too far off from 100%ing it, which will be one of my prouder achievements. Forza 7, I'm still playing, but I'm playing it kind of intermittently. I'm actually waiting for the Xbox One X version or console to release so I can play it on there more. I am still loving it. I think it's great. Gears 4, we've been playing a ton of again lately. I've kind of fallen back in love with it. Again, another game that's getting a huge Xbox One X update, so looking forward to that. Playing Dying Light. We're playing that in co-op with a buddy sometimes, and that's been a lot of fun. Still playing Mario, good Lord, Mario and Rabbids. And like I said, I'm kind of rambling on here because I'm playing so much. Couple things I do want to comment on, though, is that last weekend was the Wildlands open beta, or excuse me, not open beta, but free play day, where you can play the whole game. So I tried that. Thought it was pretty cool. I liked it. I'm generally a fan of the Ubisoft open world games, so I thought that was neat. And then I also got into the Sea of Thieves technical test. So it's the first time I've gotten my hands on Sea of Thieves. Was chatting with a few of my buddies that I got matchmaked with, made some friends, had a good time. I thought it was really fun. It's a really neat game. And, I can't obviously post any pictures or videos or anything else about it, but I will say it's enjoyable. And I think the more they tune it, the more fun that's going to be next year when that releases. And then, like I said, sorry to ramble on, but lastly, I just want to say that I did get to play the Xbox One X earlier this week. Sat down. It was actually the Project Scorpio edition, so I got to see that up close and personal. It's fantastic looking. If you're getting an Xbox One X, and you can get your hands on the Scorpio version, I would. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's got this kind of gradient design on it that really adds a nice flavor to the console itself. And then I was playing Forza 7 on it, and I've been playing on my Xbox One S on my OLED TV, so I've already been playing it, at the highest caliber you can now on console. And there was a noticeable difference right away. You could just see how sharp and clear it was compared to the current one. The texture quality is just staggering. So, again, just made me more excited for it. So, like I said, sorry to ramble on there, but yeah, playing a lot right now and trying to get through some things before launch in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so I'll briefly touch on my stuff. I play a lot of stuff too. With all the new releases coming out, it's kind of hard to juggle stuff that's maybe in your backlog. But I went back to Dying Light single player as well as co-op, and I did 100% the whole game as far as the missions, side missions, and a lot of the loot that you can pick up around there. So I'm really excited about that. Now I have to touch the DLC, so I don't know if I'm going to 100% all of that, but I am taking a break from that to play some other games to kind of move the stuff around. I did come back to Uncharted Lost Legacy. We've been talking about that for the last couple of Bitcasts, and one of the cool things about that game is it's starting to grow on me a little bit more. It has a very slow start, and I think at about hour 5 or 6, it really starts to pick up and the story becomes a lot more interesting. And as everybody kind of talks about, it's a beautiful game, and I would say that a lot of these scenes look just as good, if not better, than Horizon Zero Dawn, which says a lot about the PlayStation 4 Pro. So really cool game. It's really grown. I mean, like I said, I've been into racers like crazy lately. Forza 7 has, I love the Forza series. I have all of them. And it looks really cool so far from what I've played. I haven't put as much time in there as I've wanted to. I'm still working on F1 2017 on the Xbox One now, and I'm almost done with another year of Grand Prix there. Funny enough, the F1 Grand Prix for the United States is this weekend here in Austin, so I'll be going to that, and I just wanted to get to that point in the season where I'm at now, so I've been pushing like crazy to get there, and I just finished that yesterday, so that was really cool to do. And as I mentioned earlier, in the new releases, South Park Fractured But Whole, I'm only about 4 to 5 hours into it, and we'll see how that kind of goes. If we both haven't really touched Gran Turismo Sport. We had debated picking that up at launch. So with that being said, I did play the demo. I enjoyed what I saw from a visual perspective. I didn't care for the gameplay. How about you, Ains? You had mentioned you touched it as well. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so, we've talked about Gran Turismo several times on some of our conversations, but, we didn't really know what to expect of this. We knew that the content was light in this and the lack of a proper single player kind of campaign, if you will. But, turned it up. We both have PlayStation 4 Pro, so we were playing it at the highest fidelity possible. It looks really pretty, but that's about where my enjoyment for the game ended. I really don't understand. I'm almost at a loss. So I'm thinking actually about writing an article out of it because I'm so confused. There are some people, usually the PlayStation guys, who are kind of raving about it. But I think if you look at this game objectively, I don't understand what they were going for. They're trying to do that online kind of competitive racing only. I don't see how that's more viable than some other franchises who do it, and I don't see why it also means that they couldn't add any other content to the game. I mean, we're talking about a $60 simulation, they call it, racing game in 2017 that has 6, and I'll repeat that, 6 real-world tracks. It has 170 cars. Many of them are repeated. It only has one car that's older than something like 10 years, you know, from early 2000s and going back. It has one car. All the cars are just recent. It's really, really baffling that they've spent several years making this game, and I really don't know what they were doing the whole time. But to compare it to some of the other competitors out there just seems ridiculous, in my opinion. There's no way in hell that I would pay $60 for this game. And you know, I've heard some people say, well, the racing aspect of it is really good, and it may be online, but you know, you can comment as well, because we've both raced in real life. We've both played thousands of hours of racing games, and I was not impressed by that either. I didn't think it felt very well, very good, excuse me. And you know, the sounds of the cars and just the movement, I didn't think was great either. So I'm kind of at a loss for what this game is supposed to be, or what Polyphony Digital is even doing nowadays.
Yeah, one thing that I can kind of point to that does affect the experience of GT Sport is Gran Turismo for a long time has been controlled really with a poor controller. The PlayStation 3 and even PlayStation 2, gosh, and PlayStation 1 controller has never been a good controller for racers in general. The D-pads, if you remember the first Gran Turismo, you could only really race it with a D-pad, and then people would just hit left, right on that to kind of get a good steer. Then people moved over to the PlayStation 2 / PlayStation 3 controller, because that never really evolved out of a few features. And it became really hard to control. What I'm noticing when controlling Gran Turismo Sport is the new PlayStation 4 controller is not a very good controller to steer with, and it's really, really bad when you're trying to steer left and right, because you either oversteer or understeer extremely easy. And from what I've read a little bit, the game plays a lot better with a wheel. The problem is not every average gamer has a wheel to where they can experience the best. Now, I do know that when you compare Forza to Gran Turismo, I know a lot of people play with wheels more on the Gran Turismo side, but that says a lot with where we are in today's industry, because if you think about it, Turn 10 has gotten really good at giving the experience of racing with a controller a lot better. If you think of the different vibrations of the Xbox One controller and how you can feel even hitting curbs in certain parts of the controller, but then I think Polyphony has gotten really lazy on the control of the cars. And I agree with the assessment that when you drive with these cars, you feel like it's a cloud that's driving. I mean, you don't really get an experience that you're driving a car. But I don't know, it has as we like to say, a rabid following, and people will defend it to the end. But I think the average gamer that is looking for a fun racing game that is near simulation, not simulation, is probably going to be playing something different, unless you only play Gran Turismo and that's all you will play. I have friends that have not played any Project Cars, have not played any Forza, have not played any other racing game, and they've been waiting since the PlayStation 3 era to play Gran Turismo, and this is the only thing they're going to play, which is highly unfortunate. And if you're one of those gamers, just try a different racing game, in my opinion. But I don't know. We could have a whole topic, as you said. We could write a whole article on it, and still talk more about it. So.
Yeah, I think you last point. I think you made a good point about the rumble triggers, right, in the triggers of the Xbox One, because that really makes a huge difference. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they added those with Forza 6.
Yes.
And you know, it was really neat at the time. They've tuned that even more. So when you're racing, not only does the car feel like it's on the road and you get a good sensation of speed, but you can also feel what the wheels are doing. You can feel when you're sliding. You can feel if the ABS is locking, you know, triggering. You can feel if you're spinning out, all those things. When I went over and played Gran Turismo Sport, it felt dead. It felt like I was literally playing just a video game. Which sounds kind of weird, I realize, but it just had no feeling whatsoever. The sensation of speed is poor in that game. You don't feel like you're really moving fast at all. The wheels don't feel connected to the road. You have no sense of what's going on with the car. So, I mean, I could go on, but I have no idea. I know it's getting some poor reviews, and I think rightfully so. For the people who are rating it like 9s, you know, I haven't seen a major outlet rate it high yet. Most of the outlets rating it 9 seem to be those kind of more Sony leaning ones and smaller outlets. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. Really don't know what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some unfortunate numbers and sales figures. And I think when you look at the number of people that buy the game versus continue to play online, because that's really where they're aiming their stuff to, I think we're going to see those numbers fall over time pretty dramatically. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to our main topic. We're kind of talking too much about Gran Turismo. But pardon us, guys. We were hoping this game was going to be great, and unfortunately, it kind of let us down from what we were expecting. But our main topic this week is the best games of last generation. And why do we want to talk about this? Well, if you remember the last generation, it was a very long generation, and it was 8 years long. We saw a lot of stuff that changed from the beginning of the generation and where it ended. I mean, if you think about it, there's still some games from last generation that are being remade on the Switch and are being ported to the Switch, and people are going ape about it and, you know, having to get that game because they couldn't play it last generation. But not only that, but we have games that are being ported to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and remastered in 1080p or even a higher resolution with higher frames per second. So we definitely loved the last generation, and we kind of want to talk about a few of those games. We're just going to talk about at least 5 that we want to mention, and we'll kind of move on. And then hopefully in the comments, you'll let us know what some of your favorite games were from last generation, and then we have something special for you at the end. So, Ains, why don't you kick us off on what your, well, at least I shouldn't say what your favorite game is, but one of your favorite games from last generation, and why do you think that it deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, I guess, of games?
Yeah, so you know what? When you look at last generation, what was really interesting about it is, I believe I'm correct in saying it was the longest generation. So the Xbox 360 launched in fall of 2005. I was there at midnight launch, loved it. You know, it kind of introduced 720p and HD textures. PlayStation 3 came along a year later in 2006, but those consoles lasted till 2013. So by the time 2013 rolled around, you know, those consoles were very, very dated, even though there were still beautiful games being made for them. But I think, you know, because the generation was so long and because there was such a large gap there with, you know, how games were developed back in 2005, 2006, and then, you know, how they learned and all the kind of nuances the companies learned about development and how to maximize the potential of each console. The games from the early days were very different from the games, you know, in like 2011 to 2013. So kind of hit the gamut here. But the first one I want to mention, which is one of my top 3 games of all time, is Bioshock. Bioshock came out in 2007, which is still considered, that fall was considered one of the best years ever for games. Because if you remember, Bioshock 1 came out, Mass Effect 1 came out, and Halo 3 came out. And Modern Warfare came out, the original. So those 4 games are usually on, you know, the top 20, 30 games of all time, all 4 of them. So they all came out in a 6-month span, which was interesting. But yeah, Bioshock, I still think today, 10 years later, in terms of environment, in terms of setting, and in terms of even storytelling, I don't think it's been topped. Rapture is still the pinnacle in my mind of video game environment. And I was really sad to hear that, you know, they were making a big budget Bioshock movie and hopefully doing it right. And that got canceled like so many video game projects do. But yeah, I still love Bioshock. I go back to it all the time. I have a huge number of Bioshock collectibles. And while I love Bioshock 2 and Infinite, it's Bioshock 1 that obviously is remembered the fondest.
Right, and I think that first of all, I agree with everything you have there. It's in my top games of all time as well. And to one of the points you made, and I kind of want to segue my game into it, is environment. So it's really hard to kind of go into games and remember the environment almost more than the story, to where you can play a game for a couple hours overnight and kind of remember that you were in Rapture, or whatever the case is, that you were in a game. Mine is going to be Dead Space, the Dead Space series. So I have all these up here, and hopefully you can see them okay. But the reason I mention this is because Dead Space is a very close second for me when it comes to the environment. So you play as this guy Isaac, and you enter these environments that just kind of make you feel uncomfortable. Some kind of make you remember what was going on in a specific area, and you can actually see how something played out, and you can actually feel like you were there. And it was amazing how they brought his personality and issue into the story. But you have to play this game, and it kind of goes into the topic that we were talking about before when we were looking at things. Dead Space 1 was really hard to kind of say it's not the best, but Dead Space 2 is the best one of the series. And I actually have the special edition that came with a little, what was that thing called? The metal tool? I can't remember
yeah,
now. It's
I have the same thing too, and I don't remember what it's called.
There it is. It's a replica plasma cutter.
Plasma. I was going to say mining laser, which
Yeah. So it's funny because Isaac is actually a miner in this game. I don't mean like a miner like young dude, but like a miner that messes with things. And you only play with those kinds of tools. So you don't play with like a machine gun or a shotgun and all this stuff. You play with different stuff. And if you're trying to get the best experience from the series, I think the games on PC is probably where it's at from a graphical standpoint. They are all backwards compatible with the Xbox One. So you can try it there. They are available for, I guess, free if you consider it a subscription through the Game Pass. That's available through, or not Game Pass, EA Access or EA Origin Access on PC. So you can definitely play that there. And I'm going to go ahead and kick off the next one. And I just want to jump over to Nintendo for a second. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. So if you are a Wii person, and the reason I'm going to talk about Nintendo really quick and then jump it back to Ains is because the Nintendo Wii and Wii U are technically last generation, and they bled into each other of the generation. So you could pick up a Wii while the PlayStation 3 and 360 was around. And then you could also pick a Wii U up when the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 was around. And so my games from that generation that I liked a lot are Bayonetta 2, which is one of the best games you'll ever play if you played it. If you were able to get the exclusive one here that came with Bayonetta 1, it was great on the Wii U. And then Mario Kart 8, which I guess is being talked about all the time now because it's on the Switch. But those are mine for the Nintendo of last generation. What about you, Ains? What's your next one?
And I have to apologize if you saw Bert kind of giggling out the side there. I'm kind of fucking with him on the notes. So anyway, my next one is another one of my top 3 games of all time. I've talked about it at length. Previously, I've written articles about it, so I won't go on about it, but it's Last of Us. So Last of Us, as you know, originally released on PlayStation 3. It's now obviously best played on PlayStation 4 in the remastered form, on a Pro, especially if you have one. But I think probably the most, I kind of comment on Bioshock storytelling. I think from a kind of movie-like experience and movie-like writing, Last of Us is the best that video games has to offer so far. It's just really emotional. You get tied to the characters. Joel and Ellie will be forever kind of etched in my mind. And Last of Us 2 is obviously one of my most anticipated games of next year, whenever it releases. So, I think that was fantastic.
Mine kind of follow up with the same studio. We got the Uncharted series, Uncharted 1 through 3. Fantastic games. I guess it's easy to say that Uncharted 2 is my favorite one, including Part 4. I did like Uncharted 2 the best from the story. The set pieces that you could play in were amazing. And I think the time that it came out. So when Uncharted Drake's Fortune came out, it was definitely good, but it was definitely dated. So kind of to our beginning of our conversation, a first generation game from the last era is completely different from where the games ended in the last era. So kind of keep that in mind. We look at these games, still very playable. They did remaster them in the Nathan Drake collection for PlayStation 4, and they did up the resolution and the frames per second. So give them a try. I still think they're some of the best games of all time and very playable. Nathan Drake is probably one of my favorite characters in gaming of all time. He's up there with Mario and Master Chief with characters that are just people that will kind of grow with you for over time.
Whoa now.
So,
whoa now.
Hey.
Easy.
Hey, he talks, Master Chief. Sometimes.
No, Nathan Drake's one of my favorites too, and I completely agree with you. Uncharted 2 is the best one of the 4, or of the 5 if you include Golden Abyss. But my next one is.
Does anybody do that? We include that?
Hey, it wasn't that bad. Come on.
I had that game too, so whatever.
Red Dead Redemption. So this game, obviously, a lot of press recently because of Red Dead Redemption 2, the new trailers we've seen. We've talked about it, one of our most anticipated games for good reason. Red Dead Redemption kind of blew us away when it released last gen. It really pushed the boundaries of Xbox 360 and PS3. It created a Wild West that, I don't think has been created as vividly in video games prior. So I think that just environment, that world just felt alive, and it felt really neat to just explore it. On top of that, it had a really underrated and not even much talked about multiplayer mode. I used to play it often, almost daily with some friends, and I had some kind of neat modes, and it was fun to play a third-person game set in the Wild West where, you're using rifles and 6-shooters and running around with gold and things like that. So a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to Red Dead Redemption 2, especially seeing what they do with the online, given the development focus of Rockstar with like Grand Theft Auto Online. So we'll see what that brings. But if you haven't played Red Dead Redemption, excuse me, please do. If you're on the Xbox One, it's backwards compatible, and it runs even better than it did on 360 and PS3. So definitely give it a play.
Yeah, so kind of a thing to talk about Rockstar in general. So Grand Theft Autos, I mean, gosh, those Grand Theft Auto was 4 that was on the last generation. You have to kind of play that. The DLCs for them were amazing, so definitely pick that up. It's not one of my favorites, but it's definitely some of the best games of the last generation I do want to mention. The game I want to mention is the Arkham City game. I thought Arkham City was the best one of the series, including Arkham Knight, even though Arkham Knight is beautiful to look at. But even Origins is one of my favorite games from it, even though it's not made by Rocksteady. But they're fantastic if you're a Batman fan, or even if you're an open world fan and kind of know a little bit about Batman, but not a huge fan. You have to play it. It's fantastic, and the story, the villains, the people that help you in it. I won't definitely give you any spoilers about it, but the whole series is pretty good, and I definitely suggest it. So. There is a remastered version that you can get. I think it's called Return to Arkham. It's unfortunately really buggy. I'm hoping that the Xbox One X will kind of have some enhancements for it. They do something. It plays slightly better on the PS4 Pro over the PS4, but it was just not ported very well, unfortunately. But they a lot of these games are backwards compatible on the X1, so give those a try too.
Nice. So I'll move on to one of my favorite series we've talked about, and that is Halo. Most people would think that I'm going to say Halo 3, but I'm not. I'm one of those strange, weird Halo fans that loves Halo 4. I think it is one of my favorite Halos. It is, in my opinion, it has the best Halo campaign. I think most people hold Combat Evolved up there, and I would too, simply from a nostalgic perspective. But Halo 4 was the campaign where you really got to see the human side of Chief. Chief and Cortana's relationship in Halo 4 was absolutely fantastic story writing, and the epilogue in that game in particular I've watched countless times. But on top of that, I just thought it was a really fun multiplayer, real fun campaign to play through. I actually did enjoy the multiplayer. I understand all the complaints about it not being the same competitive nature that it was with 2 and 3, and obviously now 5. I think they messed up in some of those areas, but the big team battle mode in Halo 4 was amazing and still is. There's just something about it that just makes it tremendously fun to play. So I put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game, and I've played through the campaign multiple times, including on the Master Chief Collection, and I'll probably do that again when it gets updated. So one of my favorites.
Cool. My next one is Mass Effect 2. I have the collector's edition for this one, and Mass Effect, as we always talk about on here, is one of my favorite series of all time, if not my favorite trilogy, right next to Dead Space and Arkham. But Mass Effect 2 is probably what everybody's favorite one is. I think a lot of people still have a huge affinity towards Mass Effect 1, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I had to interrupt you over there.
I'm just kidding. No, but I actually like Mass Effect 2 more, mainly because the supporting cast is done so well, and it's just amazing what they did with this game. It's a shame that 3 didn't end up the way a lot of people wanted it to, and as we know what happened to the studio and everything, we're going to move on to the next one. And I'm just going to talk about a couple games really fast, and then we'll kind of close it out with Ains's favorite. But Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was kind of revolutionary. A lot of people like Modern Warfare 2 more than 1. But one of the things that I liked a lot about the Modern Warfare series is you could play with your friend co-op, and there was like a whole campaign that you could do co-op together in the mission ops side. So it was just amazing when it came out, and it kind of changed multiplayer gaming for the first person side even more than it had already changed. I do have God of War 3 in here. So if you're a PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PSP, Vita, or even PlayStation 3 and now PlayStation 4 fan of God of War, God of War 3 was my favorite out of all of them. And it's a must play. There's a remastered edition available on PlayStation 4. It looks amazing still. They did it really well. And the last one that I have on here for older games is Metal Gear Solid 4, which was my favorite one, including the new one, which is actually really close up there for my favorite one. But Metal Gear Solid 4, when that came out, it blew everyone away from a graphical standpoint and the storytelling. So, gosh, this game had probably 60 hours of just video. I can't even remember how much if you ever wanted to play for 15 minutes, you should have just played a different game, because you couldn't sit there for 15 minutes. You had to watch a 20, 30-minute video just for getting to the next checkpoint. But and last but not least, South Park: Stick of Truth. It is in my list of favorite games from last generation and a must play if you're a fan of the series. And that'll do it for me on games of last generation.
Ending your segment there. So I will comment on Metal Gear Solid 4. That is actually, I have the Metal Gear Solid 4 PlayStation 3 bundle. That's when I got my PlayStation 3. I actually didn't buy one at launch, which is rare thinking back. But I was never a Metal Gear Solid fan. I think, and don't hate me, but I think they're incredibly overrated games. But that being said, Metal Gear Solid 4 was tremendous. It was just absolutely fantastic to play through. The videos were a bit much, as you mentioned. They were far too long at times. I think the ending one, once you beat the game, wasn't it like 35 minutes long or something? It's like watching an episode of a show, afterwards.
Yeah, you're not even exaggerating. It really was 30+ minutes.
No, yeah, I'm not just saying that. I think it was 35 or 40 minutes because I timed it when I beat the game. But the final, especially the final, like 2 hours of that game were absolutely incredible. Really, really good storytelling and cinematics, the way it was framed. So good job on Kojima's part there. For me personally, there's a couple other games I wanted to mention real quick, like you did. The Gears of War series is one of my favorite series of all time. I think the trilogy is probably right up there, just behind maybe Halo for me. Mass Effect, you commented on, one of my favorites as well. But Gears has always held a special place in my heart. Love it to death. Met good friends through it, still play it. Like we said, we're playing Gears 4 a ton, and I follow that series very, very closely. And then Borderlands 1 and 2, I wanted to mention as well. Simply fantastic games. Borderlands 2, I have several hundred hours into. I've played it beginning to end countless times. I've done everything in the end game that you can possibly do. So, and a lot of good memories playing with my sons and stuff in co-op. So just the fact that you could play in co-op and loot hunt was great too. So good stuff there. I am really looking forward to Borderlands 3. I wish Gearbox would stop, effing around and wouldn't have wasted their time on these other kind of experiments they have, which I completely understand. But, the world's waiting for Borderlands 3. And I think given the new systems, I'm really hoping that's something special as well. So anyway, the last game I want to mention, which you mentioned remasters coming out. So one of my last favorite games, and I've talked about it on Season Reflections before, is LA Noire. I think LA Noire is a masterpiece. I think Rockstar really did something unique there, and I'm happy to see it coming back. It's another game I'll be picking up next month. But that's about me. That's about me. That's about the end of my games for last generation. I'm sure I'm overlooking probably several more, including Skyrim, which just came to mind. But yeah, it was a fantastic generation for games. So as Bert mentioned previously, what we're going to do here, guys, is on the YouTube video, if you are logged in, just subscribe and comment. We are going to put a list in the description of games that we're going to be giving away, kind of the best games of last generation. We have a collection of titles that we're going to be giving away copies of. So we'll list that out for you. If there's one on there that you haven't played or you love and wanted to pick up again, just let us know. And we'll be sending those out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, these are going to be free of charge too, guys. So you don't have to worry about shipping or anything. And when you're commenting, just let us know what your favorite game of last generation is, and we can add it in there and kind of talk about it. And we'll definitely put if these are backwards compatible as well. On some of our PS3 games, unfortunately, some of those are not backwards compatible in the traditional sense to where you put it to disk in. Some of them are available digitally, backwards compatible on other systems, but it's kind of unfortunate. So make sure that if you do want one of the games that it works on your system, and we'll definitely put if they are backwards compatible on Xbox. So looking forward to your comments, and looking forward to getting these out to you. So let's go ahead and talk about our something we like to do is we kind of talk about our collectibles that we've picked up this week or in the last couple of weeks. I'll go ahead and kick it off on what I've been getting. So I know Ian's going to crack up, but I got some crazy amiibos this week.
Here we go. Here we go.
I stopped by to check on something and return something at a store, and there was a GameStop nearby, and they had every Zelda amiibo you could think of. And apparently someone had a huge return from what I heard, so I picked them all up. So there's a problem there. There's definitely a problem on that. And I'm also a huge limited run games fan, and I think a 2 Bitcasts ago, I finally got my Yeast Collector's Edition, and it came dented and all messed up. Well, I got my replacement today for it. And on that same topic, I did get the Yeast PAX exclusive this week as well. It's still, unfortunately, in the package, but I'm pretty sure this one is fine in here. So I'm looking forward to getting this one up and taking a look at it. So that's it for there. Mainly just getting a lot of software, none of the typical collectibles recently, but hopefully in the near future we'll get some more of those. There's so much hardware coming out that you got to kind of slow down on the other stuff. How about you, Ains?
Yeah, I'm the same way. No specific collectibles per se recently. I think I've got some things coming in the near future that we'll talk about. But I did just want to mention, you may notice that I am wearing a Project Scorpio t-shirt. So if you weren't aware, this emblem here is on the motherboard of every Xbox One X. It's supposed to be Chief riding a scorpion. And it says Project Scorpio here. I got it in green because, you know, just for Xbox. But this came from a person named Crypt Concepts on Twitter. You can find him, and he kind of makes t-shirts for fans of Xbox related things, so hardware and games and the like. And like I said, I ordered this last week. Great communication from him, and really loved the shirt. So I just want to give a shout out to him, thank him for it. And that's about it on the collectible side.
Yeah, and we'll be definitely linking the Twitter just to kind of know where you are if you want to get one. They're definitely cool shirts. And this was kind of released early about what's on the motherboard, so you can find it online. We'll probably try to put a picture in there on where on the motherboard it is. Obviously, people aren't going to be taking apart their motherboards and their boxes to see the motherboard, but it is kind of cool. So a very cool shirt. Glad you got one of those. And we're going to go ahead and close it out, guys. We usually do have a season reflections in all of our Bitcasts, but since we kind of covered the best games from last generation, we're going to skip that this week just from a timing perspective. So hopefully you got some of that from our best games from last generation. Funny enough, we both had a game that was somewhat from last generation, so it would have been just another game to talk about. But we do want to thank you for listening, folks. We do have some new content for you guys to take a look at. So we have a whole bunch of new articles for you to take a look at from a news perspective. But we do have a few reviews that have come up in the last few weeks, so take a look at those. We did an unboxing on a Mayflash USB dongle for the Switch that allows you to play other controllers onto it. And then let's see, what else do we have on there? What new content do we have for people to take a look at?
As you said, we got some reviews. There's just been a lot of news lately. You did the unboxing and the testing of the Mayflash, which is pretty interesting. So if you're, you know, playing your Nintendo Switch and you've thought about a Pro controller, even if you have a Pro controller, you may want to check this out because it allows the use of, you know, other third-party controllers or other system controllers like Xbox and PlayStation on the Switch. So I thought you did a really good job on that video. We are obviously right in the crux of or in the middle, I should say, of the fall season. So all the major releases we talked about coming next Friday, we'll have kind of a plethora of content coming in various forms. So I'm going to be doing some streaming. We'll be putting up impressions of things. I'm probably might be the first Assassin's Creed I buy on day one in Origins. So I may put some thoughts up about that. And obviously we'll be talking about Mario as well. We're both, I think that's probably our most anticipated game of the fall. So yeah, just keep an eye out. A lot of stuff in the works. Nothing specific to point to. The only other thing I'll say, it's not new, but you know, Xbox One X is nearly upon us here. If you're still one of the people who have questions about it, who aren't quite sure what it means in terms of you know, the generations, or you know, how games work, how you're going to play with your friends, or if you're on the fence about buying one, I do have some articles out there that talk about the details of the system, as well as why I personally think that despite it being $499, that the Xbox One X with all of its feature set is an absolute bargain. And so if you're one of those people that, you know, likes to play games at a higher level, or, you know, doesn't mind spending more on your games to get a better experience, why you should definitely look at one. So anyway, I think that about covers it.
Yeah, and if you're definitely listening at this point in the video, that means you definitely like the longer Bitcasts where you can kind of sit down and kind of listen and work or drive, whatever you're doing. But if you do like just the shorter main topics, we are kind of removing those from the Bitcast in a smaller form, so where you can listen to those. So we're kind of taking them out, having them standalone for you guys to take a listen to or watch on YouTube as well. So make sure you take a look at those, guys, and don't forget about our kind of not really a contest, but our giveaway this week. If you are listening to audio only, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to us on Twitter and leave a comment on what your favorite game of last generation was, and we'll try to find you on there as well. So thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully listen next time, and we'll talk to you later.